teaching you about the first form of education, which is knowledge itself. It's your foundation. Are you with me so far? Does that make sense? So everything that you apply when you are truly educated, there's three things that should happen, because this takes you into adulthood. You have to provide, defend, and protect yourself, your family, and your community. All three must happen. If you're not doing all three, then you're not an adult. In this country, for the most part, when you become 18, they tell you you're an adult. But yet there's nothing that you were educated on, you've been trained, but there's nothing in your education that has educated you to be an adult. Because if you were educated, all the information that you get when you go to school, once you graduate with your diploma and you get your college degrees, will then be applied to yourself, your family, and your community. Community. That's the reason when we look at a trend, we have people, and I'm just going to be conservative, let's say from the 1950s to today, there's been thousands and thousands of people who have went to high school, graduated with degrees from associates to PhDs, but yet Trenton still looks like this. We still have the problems that we have in Trenton. That would mean that they're not educated. That means that they've been very trained. Does that make sense? Because all three of those things that I just laid out were not met, because the show and prove, you can look right out here and see it. Yes? Okay. So, you've helped me thus far because some of your questions in reference to how to form critical questions, you've already done. In listening to you, you've already used who, what, where, and how. And I've used how. The reason I have why down here, you don't use why. Because why is like a dog chasing his tail. You ever see a dog chase his tail and he goes in a circle? And it's like talking to a baby or an infant. When they ask you a question and they're starting to learn, and you give them an answer, they keep saying why, no matter that it's definite. That's it, why, but why. So this is the reason you don't use why. You use the other four. Now, as I was saying, census. We went through the census, yes? What's that? No, I'm saying we talked about the census and its application and the reason for the census and what it's supposed to do, and also how it's been used to manipulate all of us, to make us, meaning, I'm going to use the term that you're familiar with, African Americans believe that they're minorities. And also part of the education, if you were truly educated, they would also educate you on the aspect of the connection between our Latino brothers and sisters and Africans, because there's African ancestry within the Latino population. So instead of being separated, you would be together. You with me? Does that make sense? Then if I take it even further, you can do the same with the Asians. So they actually have us thinking that we're separated, but we're not. But we're separated in the mind, so then actually you are separated. Now that doesn't mean that within your specific countries, or there are cultures that are unique to you, no doubt. But that also shouldn't supersede the fact that there's a common ancestry. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when I talk about developing the culture, when we say census, so let's walk through it. So is there education based upon how we talked about it? Does the census help to affect education? Anyone? How? Let me stop you. How many 15-year-olds in here? Anybody 14? 1 14. 15, right? Hands again for 15. Hands for 16. Maybe 17-year-olds. Okay, you guys need to be speaking. And if you don't know, we need to say, I don't know. Because although you're teenagers, remember, you are grossly behind in the race. So we need to be ahead. And actually, you're the creators of civilization, so you should be on the other end. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Census. Is there education in census? If you don't know, say, I don't know. Yes.
I don't understand what you're asking.
Good question. Remember when I just talked about in the census, based upon the numbers, goes the money and the resources? Now, you just have a new school at Trenton, yes?
Yes.
So I know you have new stuff. Prior to your new school, were you not, I was told you guys didn't even have books to take home. I heard that you guys dealt with dittos, yes? Depends on the classes. When I say dittos, meaning that you guys didn't have books to take home, so they ran off copies and then you would use that for homework and stuff of that nature, yes? So that means that your education was affected, yes? Because of the resources weren't allocated to you because your numbers didn't denote that you needed that money, whereas it went somewhere else. You with me?
Yes.
We're connecting everything now?
Yes.
Okay. Economics. I pretty much just went through that, right? Economics meaning money. Because of the census, right? And because of the way they did the numbers, meaning the numbers weren't enough to say, let's give in this community, allocate this amount of money, right? So, economics. Entertainment is affected with the census. Anyone can tell me? Yes, no, maybe so? Yes?
Because entertainment is sometimes there could be graphics.
Yes. I'm gonna help. Go ahead.
That's kind of all I have.
That's fine. It's a good start. Band. Do you guys have all your instruments? You have it now. Did you have it before? You did? That's good. Somebody provided it for you? Art? You have art? Yeah. Okay. Not now, because I know you have it now. In the past, because some of you are juniors. Okay. Not really? And that's my point. Or maybe I should say as compared to others. Do you have friends in other communities? Do they seem to have more than you?
No.
No? Yes? When I don't mean you personally, I meant in terms of resources and stuff of that nature. That's my point. Entertainment, meaning band, that's part, although it's in school, the curriculum. Yes?
It seems like BPA, which is resources, they have like a lot more than.
Right? This is how it affects you. So the reason I'm bringing these things up, so then I'm planting seeds in your mind, because we're applying it now. We're applying it, and we're developing our culture, because the culture is how you present yourself to the world. So what I'm doing is creating helping you to create your culture, which is self-relating, meaning, actually it's African-centered, but I'm going to call it self-relating, so that when you are taking in information, you apply it to yourself, your family, and your community to help. So when you get your degrees, you will come back, be it living here, or you will understand you need to give back to your community so that it helps make this better for those who are coming behind you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's why we're going through this. Labor, I'm gonna help you. With labor, again, resources.
Money.
Loans for your community. If you don't have the numbers, what's the reason institutions should give you money to help develop it? For your labor, right? Yes?
Yes.
Now, it doesn't apply to all these things. Okay, you want to make a stab at religion? Because we could really go through that. Politics is what we've been talking about. It's all politics, right? You see, these things are affecting you. You may not even pay attention to it. You could care less to read about it, but it is affecting you. It took, when they announced that Trenton High, they want to tear down the old build structure and build a new one, it took longer than what it had to. It didn't have to take that long. But if our people in the community were educated, critically thinking, and had a self-relating culture, it wouldn't have took that long. When we have our PTA meetings as well as City Hall meetings, they should be packed, shouldn't they?
Yeah. Yes.
Not, are they?
Nope.
Trained, not educated. Yes, sir.
I have an idea of why sometimes we don't exactly get what we want, and oftentimes we are unsatisfied, but we don't see change. I think we've seen Get Out before.
Yes.
Y'all remember the sunken place?
Yes, yes,
Basically, as a collective, most people in Trenton are in the sunken place.
yes.
So I think that's how politics has to do.
That's a great answer.
Also has to do a little bit with our psychology as a culture.
Everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Would you agree? I agree. And this is the purpose of what Brother Freedom was doing here, as well as I am doing here. And when I put war, there's many things you can talk about with war. Be it actually physical war, you go somewhere else to fight. But there's also a war within self. It's a war against you.
War against community.
It's war against community. It's the disconnect between our law enforcement and the communities. Because there are good cops. All cops aren't bad. And all people in the hood aren't bad. There's good in any organization, there's good and bad. Does that make sense? So what we're talking about, there's a disconnect to where now we don't trust the cops, and the cops, generally speaking, think that we criminals. So they act accordingly. So that's the type of war. So there needs to be a conversation, more conversations. You had a statement.
10 minutes left.
No.
10 minutes.
No?
Oh, wait, yeah. About conversations, there was this TED Talk that I listened to, of a guy. The presenter actually spends most of his time converting Ku Klux Klan members just by talking to them.
Because that's a good point. Because what happens is we are educated or miseducated into our value system. And we act based upon what we value, right? So what our country has done, and I call it a formula that's not good, is that we think we can make laws that will change people's values. Legislation doesn't change values. Education changes values. And what Brother was just talking about is a person talking to another person and they realize there's value in that person. So now I don't see them as just a thing, I see them as a human being. That make sense? Okay. And when we write sex, the reason I put this here, we're talking gender. I'm using specifically for that. We have women that work the same jobs as men that get paid less. We have women who, because they're dressed a certain way, men think that they can take them. Value system, right? Non-major people activities. You may not even think about it, but it's happening every day. And I'm sure you can come up with examples of your own. Now, at the beginning of the class, I did a rhyme. The purpose of the rhyme, it was an original piece called Formal Introduction. It's one of the ones I said, let me do that with y'all, to formally introduce myself. It's a form of critical thinking. Because the title is called Formal Introduction. So I wanted to be true to that. So the verse is just spitting on something that's just generic. I said, well, let me introduce myself from the persona of the character or my hip-hop name, which is Warlord. So what does that mean? You're talking about war waging academic and economic war against those who wish to oppress the minds, the bodies, and souls of people, and all oppressed people in the world. Right? That's each one of the members in my group, this is what we did. You say that when they say their names, they were able to give you something like I just gave you. Now, we didn't sell a lot of records, but we toured Japan, overseas, throughout the United States, been on TV, BET. Back in the day, they used to have a show called Rap City. We were on it twice. We hosted it once. So with formal introduction, and plus I'm a metaphysician, I get into sciences and studies and energies. That's how I started to rhyme. Energy combined, defined all the time. My crime, homicide through the strength of the rhyme. Because in hip hop, you want to talk about how better you are than the next person, yes? So I wanted to talk about what I was going to do to whoever wanted to step, right? Energy combined, defined all the time. My crime, homicide through the strength of the rhyme. Inclined to blow your mind. In tune, bringing you doom. Consume, sending heads back to the MC classroom. I don't react to jack, smacking. Lyric whack, exact, as I continue with the verbal attack. I'm critically thinking. 'Cause I'm going on, right? Rewind. I'm just gonna skip forward. Rebel attack. In fact, guard your front. Put out your blunt. Clear your head. Warlords on the hunt. And bringing hellfire. Sword. Angel Miguel. You know the Archangel? Angel Miguel. Mental jail. The abyss. The abyss. Something place. I place the disc. My fist in full effect. Third eye. Laser correct. Detect those who left bringing mega death. There's a rock group called Mega Death. So I just do that in there, but also mega death. The type of death that leaves you soulless in a physical shell. Like, oh, we just snatched the soul. Formal introduction to lyrical hell. I be the all I seeing. Can't run and hide. Need to know my flow is like the number 8. Are y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Number 8 on the side. What's that?
Infinity.
Exactly. Critical thinking. Boom. Right. Right. So now it's like, whoa. Right? Yes.
You're saying we should like make poems that introduces ourselves?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Good question. What I'm saying is with the things that you do critically thinking, you can apply it to everything. So since I was doing hip hop and we're writing rhymes, that's how I wrote my rhymes. So that it's easy to hide within a beat, but when someone does it a cappella, they actually listening to what you're saying, now it's like, whoa. Or if it's whack, whoa. Right? So, how much time I have? Oh, we're good. So, what you should have gotten out of this today is the difference between being educated and being trained. There's nothing wrong with being trained because it's a specific task that you learn to do something, but it needs to be applied to education. Just because someone is in front of you speaking and they call themselves an educator doesn't mean they're educated. An educator brings the uniqueness out of you out. That's the Latin root of education, to bring out of. And an educator will do that so then that you get to the point where then you're teaching me from your perspective, because all of us are unique children of the Creator. So all of us have greatness in us. So if someone is not doing that, that means they're teaching you, but that doesn't mean they're educated. That doesn't mean disrespect them. You get from them what you can. Okay? Get your training and understand that it needs to be applied to self so that you help you, your family, and your community. Right? I taught you how to form your words, form your sentences, so that they are critical. Get critical answers. Yes?
Yes.
This is our foundation. These are the things that help affect us every day. And you guys were very good because we took this without even me having to do the transition, and we applied it to census. So we took something like census and then we applied it to this foundation, right? And we can do the same with everything else. So I could have put sexism on the board, racism on the board, capitalism on the board. You should be able to do the same thing because it all affects you. So now when you're looking at the news or you're hearing things, or even as you talk or you're in your class, you should be critically thinking to see how it applies to you and how you can take that information to not only help you, because I'm repeating it, yourself, your family, your community, so you can make this better. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. I thank you for your time. You've been great.